Story time about how my brother caught me making out with his girlfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Growing up, I didn't have a really good relationship with my parents or with my brother. The only person that I did get along with was my sister. You see, we're kind of a religious family. When I was 15, I knew that I liked girls, but there was no way that I would tell my parents that I did. They would never accept that their daughter liked other girls. I basically suppressed all of those feelings for about 5 years. When I turned 20, I decided to come out to my sister. My sister was super open, accepting, and she was really loving about it. She never once made me feel bad. I asked her what she thought about me telling the rest of the family, and she said definitely not. She knew that our parents would freak. I finally got my first girlfriend a year after that. I actually met her on my 21st birthday. At this point, I still live with my parents, so I basically said that she was a best friend of mine. My parents, of course, believed me because they had no other reason not to. She would come over to my house, and we would just spend time together there. She eventually got really upset that I would never tell my parents about us, and she decided to break up with me because of it. Of course, I was brokenhearted about it, but 3 weeks later, I met my brother's now girlfriend. Right off the bat, we got along really well. Like I said before, I never had a really good relationship with my brother. He suspected that I liked girls, but he never came out and told me. But because of this, there was always tension between us. Also, I never understood why his girlfriend liked him because he has no personality and zero sense of humor, which is honestly why I think her and I got along so well. Anytime she came over to our house, I would just find her so funny. My brother had to go out of town for work, so she invited me to go out with her friends for lunch. Of course, I quickly accepted. I honestly didn't realize it at the time, but I was definitely developing a crush on her. She was my kind of girl. I mean, I guess my brother and I have the same type. She was funny and incredibly smart. After that lunch, she asked me if I wanted to hang out another 2 times when my brother was away. Everything was going pretty well, but after the 3rd time that we hung out, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I knew this was going to be a really big problem for me. I'm the kind of person that's always honest with people as much as I can. When my brother finally came back, she started coming over to the house more. I was both excited but worried at the same time because I knew that I had feelings for her. One day she came over, but there was nobody home. That's when I decided to be honest with her and tell her the truth. I opened up to her and told her my history and that I had a crush on her. She smiled and told me that it was okay. That's when she grabbed my hand and we started kissing. Trust me, I know that it's totally wrong because she's my brother's girlfriend, but I was falling in love with her. That's when my brother comes in and sees us making out. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my brother caught me making out with his girlfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. That's when my brother comes in and catches me making out with his girlfriend. He instantly went berserk and started punching a hole through a wall. His girlfriend tried to calm him down, but he told her that if she touched him, he would probably end up hitting her. Luckily, no one else in the house was home, but my brother threatened to tell my parents. Like I said in part 1, my parents are very religious, and I knew that they would never accept me as I am. That's when my brother said that he had already been suspecting of me and his girlfriend because her and I had been hanging out so much. He then started calling me a bunch of names like freak and other really inappropriate things. Then the fight became about him and his girlfriend. His girlfriend started telling him that she had been miserable the whole time that she was with him and that he had been manipulating her the whole time. She told him he was even toxic, which I can believe because my brother's kind of like that. She then left the house and told him that she never wanted to see him again. My brother started asking me a bunch of questions like how long I had been seeing her. I told him that this was the first time her and I had ever kissed. Then he told me that I needed a man to teach me how to be a woman. So instead of staying and arguing with him, I decided to leave. I decided to go ahead and tell my parents the truth before my brother did. I was absolutely petrified. I told my parents that I like girls, and I told them what had happened with my brother's girlfriend. That's when my dad told me that they weren't upset that I like girls and that they would have accepted me either way. But they were really upset that I had hurt my brother's feelings and that I caused them to break up. They were surprisingly okay with what I had told them. I mean, after years of being petrified of them knowing the truth, I felt so free. But I also told them that my brother had been toxic towards her and that's why she didn't want to be with him anymore. My parents actually ended up being more angry with my brother than with me. But you'll never guess, a few months later my brother told my parents that he's bi. I haven't contacted my brother's ex, but I really feel like I should. I mean, I was falling in love with her. What do you guys think I should do? P.S. My brother's much happier. Story time of how I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me with my cousin. My boyfriend and I had been together for 2.5 years. His family loved me and my family loved him and they expected us to get married. Well, last year when COVID started, we were actually in different countries, so we didn't see each other for 3 months. During those 3 months, we FaceTimed 4 times a day, and we were always texting. He happened to be quarantining in our hometown, so both of our families were in the same place. I was quarantined in a different country. One day my cousin calls me and tells me that she met a really nice guy on a dating website. I was so happy for her because she had had bad luck with guys. Every single week, her and I would catch up on the phone phone and she would tell me how much she liked this guy and how amazing their dates were and how amazing he was in bed, how sweet and considerate he was. I couldn't be happier for her. Well, when I finally get back home, my boyfriend is super distant and cold. So naturally, I called my cousin and complained. She told me to give him space. She said I should just leave him alone. And so like an idiot, I did leave him alone. One day my cousin calls me and tells me to come over for dinner. When I got there, my boyfriend's car was parked in her garage. I thought it was just her nice way of trying to get us to talk. I walk in and catch them doing the dirty on the couch. Come back for part 2. So I walk in on my cousin and my boyfriend doing the dirty on her couch. They quickly get up from the couch and get dressed. Of course, by that time, I'm in hysterics. I'm crying and yelling. My boyfriend instantly got on his knees and begged me for forgiveness. I went up to my cousin and I punched her right in the face. She wasn't expecting that. And I said, well, this is the guy that you've been dating, isn't it? She said yes, and that she was just trying to find the best way to tell me. And so she just thought the best way to tell me was to get me to walk in on her and him doing the dirty. I punched her again. My boyfriend came to her rescue though. Instantly went into hero mode, which made me even angrier, so I punched him too. I stormed out of her house and went back to my house. Well, I told my parents everything. And my dad went over to my uncle's house, my cousin's dad, and he told him everything. She was about to turn 19, so he took away her phone and her car. And I get a phone call from my ex, come back for part 3. Part 3. So my lying, cheating ex calls me and explains to me why he actually slept with my cousin. He said that he was so lonely and that he didn't know what to do, and that the closest thing to me he could find was my cousin. Right, as if that was any comfort to me. He said I should be grateful that I didn't cheat with someone else. I told him he had totally betrayed my trust and that I could never ever trust him again. And then he confessed that she was pregnant and that his parents wanted them to get married. He said he just wanted to give me a heads up. Then he said that we could still be together but just not tell anyone, so basically he wanted me to be his side piece. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. It was like I didn't know this man. Guess what I did? I recorded the entire conversation. So I went straight to my cousin and I let her listen to it. She was so shocked. She couldn't believe that he would offer to have me as a side chick. Well, I also let my uncle listen to it. He went to my ex's house and beat him up. Honestly, that made me sad, but he deserved it. They now have a baby and he's gained 50 pounds. Trust your instincts, girl, and always record your conversations. Also, how cute are my nails?
Story time about how my husband is bullying me into getting plastic surgery. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 2 years. I'm in my early 20s and we just had a baby. We're really well off, thankfully, and we have a wonderful life. All things considered, I do have a wonderful husband. He loves me, always wants to be with me, loves our daughter, and is a wonderful dad to her. He's super caring and loves my family as well. The only problem is that he's addicted to Instagram, and he follows a lot of girls that, look fake. One day he started showing me pictures of this one girl. I will not say who she is, but just know that she's a very big influencer who claims to be all natural and totally is not. He asked me if I wanted to get some work done after I had the baby. I told him no because that wasn't even a priority of mine. I was more worried about having our daughter and taking care of her when she was first born. That's when he suggested that I should do what Kylie Jenner did. Kylie Jenner supposedly had her baby and directly after she got her stuff done. I laughed off the idea and he said, "I'm serious." You see, I thought he was joking. I asked him why he wanted me to get that done. He confessed he was afraid that my body was going to look completely different than when we first met. I was shocked because, you're in love with me, not with my body. After I had the baby, he made an appointment with me at a plastic surgeon. Part 2 is up. Telling me my husband made an appointment at a plastic surgeon for me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I had told him so many times that I did not want work done on me. I told him I wouldn't go to the appointment. Then he told me that he wanted me to look like the girls on Instagram and that he needed my body to look like it did before the baby. I was shocked. My husband had never been like this before, but his addiction to Instagram was getting that bad. He pulled out his phone and started showing me pictures of girls on Instagram. I told him those were highly edited pictures and he said I don't care. He told me that he probably wouldn't be attracted to me anymore and that's why I needed to get all the work done on my body. I told him that I would never ask him to do anything surgical to his body for my benefit. And he told me that if I had asked him, he would do it in a heartbeat. Then he actually started showing me pictures of Kylie Jenner and Kim Kardashian. He told me that he knew who their doctor was and that I could go to that same doctor. I was more than shocked. I felt sick to my stomach. For those of you who may be wondering, my husband and his family own a very big company. He was born into money. For him, you can buy anything in the world. As the weeks passed by, he kept getting more irritated that I wouldn't say yes. One day he showed me a picture of me that he edited of me to look like Kim Kardashian. Part 3 is up. My husband insisted that I look like Kim Kardashian. Actually even went ahead and edited a picture of me in the shape of Kim Kardashian. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I started to cry instantly and I told him I did not want to get any surgery. He backed off because he knew he hurt my feelings, but just the following day he asked me again. At this point, I didn't know how else to say no. A few days later, we were having a peaceful lunch and suddenly out of nowhere, he asked me what I would do if he found someone that did look like Kim Kardashian. I told him that I would straight up divorce him and that he would never see our daughter again. That's when he got up from the table and left. He basically gave me the silent treatment for 2 days. Finally, I told him that I would not get surgery, but that he could get me a personal trainer to work out. He said that that wasn't enough. Once again, he asked for me to consider it. 2 days ago when I got home, he ordered me a bunch of clothes from Skims. He asked me to try it on, and when I did, he said that I didn't look that bad, but that he still thought I should get some work done. He also told me I should get a tan. At this point, I just don't know what to do. I started a new diet in efforts to lose weight, and I'm working out my butt like crazy. I will never look like Kim Kardashian or Kylie Jenner though. Should I just cave in and get the work done? Or should I just tell my husband no and suffer the consequences? I feel absolutely hopeless.
Story time about how my husband left me for my sister and married her 4 days later. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sending me on Instagram. My husband and I have only been married for 2 years. 2 years ago, my sister and I went on vacation. A few days into our trip, we were at a bar and we met this group of guys. My husband was one of those guys. He basically flirted with us the whole time. And I could tell that he didn't know which one of us to choose. So I made it easy for him. I told him that I liked him and that I wanted him and I to go on a date. So that let my sister know that she had to back off. My sister actually ended up hooking up with one of his other friends that night. We all hung out together for the rest of the trip. I started falling in love with him really fast. When the vacation was over, my sister and I went back home. My future husband and I would basically talk on the phone every single day. A few weeks later, he even started talking about moving to my state. I really thought he was totally committing to me because he wanted to move closer to me. Fast forward a few months later, we moved in together. We got engaged and soon after we got married. My whole family was really happy for me and my sister was too. My sister ended up being my bridesmaid and everything was great. She and my fiance ended up spending a lot of time together. I mean, she was helping me plan the wedding and she was my bridesmaid, so I didn't think anything of it. Fast forward to a year later, I ended up landing a great job. This job had me traveling 2 times out of the week. My husband mostly worked from home. Because I'm such a good wife, I decided to ask my sister to go over to my house and cook for him once in a while. After a few weeks of working my new job, I decided to come home early and I didn't tell my husband. I found him with my sister in the jacuzzi. Part 2 is I walk into my husband and my sister sitting really close in the jacuzzi. Of course, they were both in their bathing suits. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. When they saw me, they basically jumped apart. I could tell they were startled. I stared at them without saying anything for a few seconds. I was angry. That's when my husband jumps out of the jacuzzi and comes to give me a big hug. Side note, he and I never used that jacuzzi. We basically never used it because he never wanted to clean it. And I had even told him that we should just sell it if that was the case. But of course, as soon as my sister comes over, he's willing to clean it so that they can use it together. My sister, of course, jumped out of the jacuzzi too, and she offered to serve me some dinner. And basically, I just told her she could leave. That's when she looked at me with her angry face, which I know very well, and she actually did leave. After that, I had a terrible, terrible feeling in my gut. I knew that something was up right away because they jumped apart really fast. They knew they got caught. Because I traveled so much, I knew that this was probably going to happen again. So I did the only logical thing. I bought a baby cam and synced it to my phone. It basically looked like a table decoration, but it recorded video and sound. I put it above the fireplace in our bedroom. And I also put one in the living room. Of course, my husband didn't notice one bit. What do you know? The same day I left on a trip, my sister shows up. The baby cam alerted me when there was movement in the house. Little did they know I was recording the whole thing, video and sound. Approximately 2 minutes after she came into the house, they started to kiss. By the way, I was on a train watching this all go down. I wanted to faint. Their faces were basically stuck to each other for 5 minutes. Part 3 is up. See my husband and my sister full-on kissing. It's as if their faces were stuck to each other for 5 minutes. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. They look so comfortable with each other, which led me to believe that this had started a long time ago. By the way, I'm watching all of this go down through my cell phone. I had installed a baby cam before I left on my next work trip. I recorded the entire thing. I knew they would both deny it unless I had physical proof. I was so enraged I canceled my work trip. I got on a train back home. I was only 30 minutes away from my house. And yes, I was still watching them the whole time I was going home. I jumped into an Uber and had him drop me off a block away from my house. I didn't want them to know I was nearby. I opened the front door quietly and there they were on the couch, still stuck together. I grabbed my sister by the hair and pulled her over the couch. With the purse that was already in my hand, I started hitting my husband. He then pinned my arms down to my sides and told me to leave the house. You heard that right. He kicked me out. Went straight to my parents' house and showed them the video. Then my dad was so angry we actually ended up going back to my house. But of course my husband didn't let us in. Then he showed me the divorce papers. He told me if I didn't sign them that he would take all of my money because ultimately I did make more money than him. My sister was standing behind him the whole time. My dad and I left, and I don't even know how this happened, but 4 days later they were married. My sister came to my parents' house and told them the news. We fully expected them to be happy for her. He even moved into the house that I basically paid for. Still haven't been able to get all of my things out. Should I go over there and grab my things? Should I sue him? What do you guys think I should do? P.S. My sister's pregnant. Story time about how my half-sister tries to steal all of my boyfriends. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I'm currently 24 years old and I didn't meet my half-sister till about a year ago. She's 22, so she's 2 years younger than I am. My parents have a really complicated past. They divorced when I was really young, and they pretty much never spoke after the divorce. What I didn't know back then was the reason why they got divorced until now. When I was 3 years old, my mom found out that my dad had a child with another woman. It was totally heartbreaking for my mom, and I totally understand looking back. Fast forward 20 years later, my mom and my dad started speaking again. They kind of wanted just to get over all the past stuff and just be friends. I was really happy about this because I've always wanted this for my parents. Throughout the years, I kept a decent relationship with my dad, but we were never really close. So once my mom and my dad started making up, I started having more of a relationship with my dad too. And I also knew that I did have a half-sister somewhere in the world, so I was excited to meet her. We all decided to go have dinner, and that's when I met my half-sister. I assumed that her and I were just going to become really good friends because we were so close in age and we had the same dad. I mean, she's my half-sister, but I couldn't be more wrong. As soon as we met, she didn't even want to give me a hug. My mom was so upset by it that she even confronted her and asked her what her problem was. And in front of everyone at the dinner, she told my mom and I that she had no desire to get to know us and that she didn't even consider us family. My mom and I left the dinner and basically didn't speak to her for a long time. But of course, my dad, being my dad, forced her to call my mom and I to apologize. Of course, this was all super awkward. She apologized and we went about our lives. Right before Thanksgiving, I started dating someone new. He was really amazing. We got along super well and had tons of fun. My mom loved him. That year, we decided to join the two families and have one big Thanksgiving dinner. I knew my half-sister was going to be there, so I talked to my mom and told her to just have patience in case she said something to us. As soon as we show up to the house, my half-sister goes straight to my boyfriend and starts talking to him. At first, I didn't really get annoyed at all because I thought at least she was being nice. But boy, was I wrong. She spent the whole night talking trash about me to my boyfriend. My boyfriend kept looking over at me and making weird faces, so I went over there and asked him how they were. That's when my half-sister literally looks at me and just walks away. Then my boyfriend fills me in on everything that she said about me. She told him that I was dating 3 other guys behind his back. Thankfully, he didn't believe her, of course. But after this, she basically stalked him on Instagram and wouldn't leave him alone. She even got his phone number and started sending him messages. And the only reason I found out was because I saw a message come in through his phone. When I confronted my boyfriend about it, he told me that it was totally innocent and that I needed to get over it. And yes, my half-sister is very pretty. But I got really upset at my boyfriend and decided we needed to take a break. That's when she swooped in. Part 2 is up. 2 of how my half-sister tries to steal all of my boyfriends. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. After she stalked my boyfriend and started sending him messages, told him we needed to take a break because I saw the messages on his phone. And he didn't tell me. Instead of confronting her, I decided to call my dad and tell him what she was doing. That's when my dad told me that he was sick of us being children and that we both needed to mature. I mean, I wasn't the one stalking her boyfriend. Since that failed, I went straight to my half-sister. I told her she needed to leave me alone and to never speak to me again. That's when she literally denied everything that she had been doing. She told me that my boyfriend was making all that stuff up and that she would never do that. Of course, I didn't believe her. After a few weeks, I call my ex and tell him that I'm ready to talk again. That's when he told me that he actually started dating my half-sister. I couldn't believe it. Once again, I called my dad and told him what she was doing. And when he asked her about it, she denied having ever done that. She even told my dad that she wasn't dating him. So at this point, it was her word against mine. I decided to just move on with my life and I started dating new people. Once again, I meet a really good guy. I told him I wanted to take things slow and he said he understood. We were out to dinner one night and I decided to tag him in one of my stories. A few days later, he asks me if I have a half-sister and I said yes. That's when he sent me a screenshot of a conversation he had with her. And again, she was telling him that I was dating a bunch of other guys. She even asked him if they could meet up for coffee. I told him to block her and completely ignore her. A few days after that, my ex, who left me for my half-sister, calls me up and tells me that she broke up with him. He told me that I was right about her, that she was toxic and totally demented. He then begged me to give him another chance. Once again, I go to my dad and I show him all the screenshots of her messaging my boyfriends. Finally, my dad believed me. My dad and I both confronted her and she denied everything once again. But then, the new guy that I'm seeing sent me another screenshot. She apparently messaged him from another number and asked him out again. I don't know what to do at this point. She keeps denying having done anything. In fact, I'm almost scared of her. What should I do?